Here is Liesel in Washington, D.C. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Thank you for taking my call, Kojo. Harriet, I have a question about design standards and design excellence, especially in the transit-oriented developments along the Red Line. I commute to Tacoma, and I'm noticing that the new condo developments, like at Rhode Island Avenue, Fort Totten, they all look the same, and it just seems like the designs are rubber-stamped by your departments, and we're not looking at innovative excellence in expanding our architectural footprint in this city, and I was wondering if you could respond.
Thanks for your call. I think that's a great question about how we improve the architecture and the quality of design in the city.
Indeed, we have regular conversations here with architect Roger Lewis, and that constantly comes up.
Well, but as it turns out, that our office doesn't actually have design review authority over much of the development that happens in the city. If something comes in as a planned unit development, then we absolutely do. If it takes place in a historic district, or it's a historic building itself, we absolutely do. But for almost everything else, we don't really have that authority. Now, we are in the process of rewriting and reviewing our more than 50-year-old zoning code. And so one of the things that we're looking at is whether or not design standards can be better built in to the actual zoning ordinances that would allow the character of the community to be preserved. It doesn't really as much address your issue, how do we force or encourage kind of a more modern or avant-garde architecture, but in terms of allowing new development to be examined to make sure it at least is in keeping with the character of the community. That isn't to say that it looks like the existing community, but it's sympathetic to and not a jarring addition to that community is one of the things that we're looking at.
We got a tweet from someone who says, "Are conservation districts a viable option for neighborhoods as an alternative to historic districts?"
Well, that's a question that's very much in a similar vein. One of the big motivations for a lot of communities in looking at historic district designation, especially recently, has been the concern about tear-downs and pop-ups. I think tear-downs are self-explanatory. Mm-hmm. Pop-ups are when someone takes a two-story building and puts in a third story on top of it. Sometimes, a lot of our houses were built kind of as an ensemble, a pair, or three at a time, or five at a time, and a lot of times their roof line and their architecture and their windows and everything else kind of form a composition. So when a pop-up occurs in that composition, it can be a little bit jarring. So I think the idea of a conservation district as a way to potentially examine that issue and figure out how we have a better handle on pop-ups and their design, I think is a possibility, as is changes to the zoning code that we're looking at.